do one more recording, and I'm just going to record this as we go.
Okay. So it's just covering half the screen.
Oh.
There we go.
So recording live behind the scenes with Biz Clarity Coach about, what are you calling this? Behind the scenes business.
Yeah, Biz Behind the Scenes. And so I love that this is like so meta. We've got today is actually like a meta launch, because I'm showing the behind the scenes process to launch the Behind the Scenes podcast. And now my first guest, my sister, is going behind the scenes herself. So,
yes. And I bought cake.
Celebrating.
Okay.
I got some water just disguised in a mug, so should have got cake. But this
coming out.
So I still need to figure out the launch date, but this is my whole idea behind this is to show the process. So I'm into documenting the process, and I want to give examples of business owners and what it's like behind the scenes running their business. So I want to create this as an example of what it's like for me launching this new, I don't even know what to call it, because it's going to be lives in my Facebook group. It's going to be, I'm going to put it on YouTube, and then eventually I'll take the recordings and put them onto a podcast. And I'm thinking maybe in January, but if I can do it before then, that's great. So
I love it.
Yeah, there'll be some kind of launch plan at some point. But for now, so the intention for today is two things. One is to create a minimum viable product. So that's like actually running through this process, what it's like to have a guest, book through my calendar, connect the Zoom, be on the Facebook group, and then upload the YouTube. So that's like my goal. But on top of that, obviously the best person to start having a conversation with is the person who showed me behind the scenes of business. The person who showed me the way, gave me the path, taught me how to create my website, has like been the person whose first podcast I've been on, has done pretty much everything to show me the way of what it's like to create a business.
So look at you now. Woo!
I thought it was so funny because I read your post today on Instagram around like the fear. And literally all day, all that's been playing in my head is Dirty Dancing. I'm scared of everything. Like that scene, she's like, I'm scared of everything. I'm scared of who I am, what I feel. And that literally plays in a loop in my mind most days. Like I'm scared of everything.
I was thinking of that. I was like, yeah, we should start off this morning of like, I'm just having like, coffee with my start of fear, like every day. It's like, that's a huge thing of behind the scenes. I think it is that. Now, I was thinking about that also when I was getting dressed. I was like, if someone seems like they're brave, it's really just because they've dealt with a lot of fear. So if anyone, it's like the excuse of I'm scared is just, that is your raw material to practice being brave. Just like if you have a whole bunch of irritating children, which I don't, you need to practice patience. Like I don't have that. So I'm obviously patient enough, but like we get what we need to get where we're going. And it's like, if you're scared, that is not your excuse. That is literally your invitation to do something. Because not everyone feels scared. So if you're feeling that, it's because like you're meant to be doing something more, like you're being in preparation. And I'm just going to backtrack to this one last point, because now it's in my head, is that thing of like when I was younger growing up and thinking, oh, I must be the main person in this fairy tale because there's so many bad things, or because I feel like this. It's like I knew I was being prepared for something. So if you are in scary situations or life is not going the way you want and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, what is happening? It's like, well, you're probably being prepared for something great. This is like, you wouldn't have this fear for no reason. It's your ally. It's just like fear is like that dragon that you need to learn how to not just, definitely not kill, but not even tame, but like ride. Like you need to actually just ride that fear all the way to your happy ending.
I love that. And I also think the other like fantasy image that always comes in my mind is that scene in Harry Potter, but I think it's in a few different fairy tales, where you're waiting for the person, because you're in some time loop, that someone's going to be rescued in this situation, and you're like, I'm waiting, who's going to rescue this person? And it turns out that it's you. Like it's always you who has to show up, do the thing. So if you're feeling afraid and you're like, okay, I'm like searching for an answer or a process or a person or something that can help me, chances are you just have to be the one to be brave and like just do the thing, because that's all there is to it.
It's you, but you do need a mentor, and that would either be you or me. Or
totally.
So you do need a wallet in your life. You need a clarity coach or creativity coach, and probably both. So
You'll
yeah.
definitely need both. And I guess there's like so many different threads, but the one is that you do have your own school, because that's what Hogwarts is all about, like preparing you so that you have to show up, but you also have to be at school and be educated. And you have your own school. I do want to talk about that. But I also just wanted to do a little bit more backtracking before we go into like your different ventures. Because, oh yeah, another thing of like how this podcast got started was, oh yes, this is 3 years ago. So we both have stories around 3 years ago that you've just shared one of your videos. I want to hear about that. But my story from 3 years ago is this weekend I was going on to YouTube to try and sort out my YouTube account to upload these videos. And I found the video I uploaded, it was 3 years ago, when I entered a competition for James Altucher.
Yeah.
So that was like when I was trying to figure out like what I was doing with my life. And I was listening to podcasts every single day. And I had this idea of like, okay, if I was going to be successful, what would that look like? And one idea of success was, oh, I'll be interviewed on James Altucher's podcast. Like that back then, it's not anymore, but that used to be like my measure of success. And then he did a competition saying, okay, enter this competition and you can be featured on my podcast. And I thought, okay, cool. This is a way I can like shortcut my vision of success. But I was terrified. I had to create a YouTube video. And I've been mortified about that video ever since. I'm like shaky voice, so quiet, so scared, so like pale and just like washed out. And I've been thinking about deleting it for so long, but for some reason I just never logged into my YouTube account again. And when I logged in, I think 2 people have viewed it, so it's not like a big deal. Like, no one's even seen that video, but it does tell the story. Like it is great that it's there because it tells the story. I'm like talking about documenting the process. I talk about my first like side hustle, and so as awkward and awful as it is, sometimes those videos are still like the raw material of showing how you've had to get over the fear.
I love those awkward videos. I've got so many of them and it's great. It's like when I first did the live with Lauren Pitch Please challenge of how to go live and show up on video, I used examples of when I first got my camera back like 5 or 6 years ago. And like, I literally showed full 5 minutes of me just being like I was obsessed with having neat hair. I mean, now I literally don't care, but obsessed with neat hair, like neat and not one hair out of place. And is my bra strap showing? Is my lipstick perfect? And it's like, none of that stuff actually matters. But I was completely driven by that. And you can tell someone that, but when they see it and they see that fear, that's what I love about anything live, is your energy doesn't lie and they can tell exactly where you're at then. So I think it's great to have that awkward video because then they can see the transformation of then versus now. And like that video I posted from me 3 years ago of like talking about what I wanted to create with this desperate need of like fear of like, it has to happen, like it has to change, when I was really talking about how I had to change and my life had to change. And then it has. And then when it does, you can be so much more like, yeah, like it's not so desperate. And that's also to say there's nothing wrong with having that desperate urgency of desire that's so strong that it feels overwhelming, but just that like you've got to start somewhere, and it usually starts in a really awkward place, whether that's like terrified and silent or like desperate and angry like mine. Like, it's yeah, desperate and angry. That could be the title of my book. Oh.
And terrified and silent. I mean, that's a pretty good description of my experience. So I think we've nailed it. But I think maybe tell us, because I get to like witness the transformation and the process, but maybe share what the last 3 years have looked like and what that turning point has been from like showing up, wanting to create a brand new life, and to where you are now.
It's been a progressive shedding, and it started with returning to art and creating a movement for women's expression called Rebella. Now, everything I've ever done has always been to highlight something I'm dealing with internally. So I'll make it macro when it's micro. So the movement for women's expression was basically my own movement for expression. I include people in a community around whatever I'm doing so that it's never just for me. It's from me, but for others. And I created Rebella, and I did my first film that I'd never done before. It was a poetry piece. I got a collective of women. None of them were actors. I think one was. And we put together this piece about shedding your skin like a snake to step into your becoming, into your fullness, into your totality as a fully expressed woman, with embracing your wild nature. And your wild nature I can now distill simply as your creative nature, your ability to destroy and create and begin again and begin again. And I came on this like creative sabbatical, which included San Francisco, LA, New York, Bali, and then back to South Africa. But I literally got to LA and never left. So that's when everything restarted. Just before I'd left, I had stopped working with big corporates. I had a horrific experience working with Heinz, which is the tomato sauce brand. I had a terribly sexually, sexual harassment scenario with a guy who worked there, when it culminated in him telling me that I should just get on Tinder to make a plan for myself, when Heinz International hadn't paid me and I couldn't pay my contractors. Was 2 weeks. It was like so mad. It was like before Me Too. And it was really like, I never forget that moment. Like, it was a snapping point in my life where I was on the phone and I was like, I'm being told that I should just prostitute myself because a global conglomerate hasn't paid me. And this guy's trying to neg me, like, you know, that negging style where guys like, but he's my boss. It was also fucked. And I had to go back to doing art. And that really helped me get me into like a more creative space. And I also realized at that point that I didn't want to work with big men who abuse power in corporates. I wanted to teach specifically women how to create their own business. Like, I was using these skills internationally. I knew my methodology worked, but I wanted to work with people so they could create their own business, because having a business is the most empowered thing that you can have. You don't need to be, there was a lot of sense of like, I felt very controlled by patriarchal structures and, you know, men trying to dominate or control you either by having you as their wife or their whore. And even if you had your own business, it was still like this whore kind of mentality of like, I pay you, you do whatever I say, which was just out fucking outrageous. So now it's funny because it's come full circle. And my latest webinar was called How to Make Your Business Your Sugar Daddy So You Can Move to Your Beach House. So I'm actually still playing on a lot of that stuff. And even the thing of, there was one slide in that going, unless you are a prostitute, you are not the product. You know, you are not the product. Like, so I'm using all that age that was very painful at the time in a fun and playful way now to be like, yeah, you want to live a glamorous life. You want to be free and do whatever you want, but you can do business in an entirely different way. So I've reimagined business for myself, which is fun, it's inclusive, it's playful, and it's a safe space for women. It is a safe space. That's like one of the most fundamental things. We're together, we're going to support one another, and especially financially. So making sure that I have structures which show women how to share, but actually make money when they share. Don't just give it all away, but refer each other, do payment things. Like, how do you structure this efficiently? Because I think a lot of in business with men, they know how to give each other kickbacks and deals and put things together. But women, we're so used to giving for nothing that we just think we have to give and give and give. And then we get burnt out and drained and exhausted. So I try to make sure that every community I have is very replenishing and fueling and gives a lot, but you get a lot out of it too. So that's been the main transition of leaving that world, going into teaching, and then reestablishing myself in America. And most recently, through this last year, especially through the pandemic, it's been shedding any inkling I had left that any old white rich man had any piece of valuable advice, because they don't. If he's old and he's rich and he's white, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He built his business based on oppression and based on, you know, taking from others. Every single white male mentor that I've had has got me to work for him for free, promised me the world, but never delivered. And there's always been an innuendo of, I want to date you. And it's fucking weird. And so I literally threw away every single business book that I had by old white men. The only one that I kept is Think and Grow Rich. That's like so old. And I still like that, whatever. But it's time to listen to the voices of women, and we're stepping into a new world, which no one knows what to do in this world. And especially not a man who's used to having it his way with everything going according to plan, where he's the one in power. Power structures have shifted. So I would say to anyone who is stepping into business now, if he's old, white, and rich, literally cut him out. Don't listen. It's a waste of your time.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, your journey has been so inspiring, and it's incredible to see how real your beliefs are. Like, you live your truth every single day. It's not just like, you know, if you find something to be true, you take action straight away, like getting rid of your books, and you transform fast. And so the challenge that I just ran that you were part of was creating your own vision of success. And I think with you, like, you live your vision of success every day. But maybe just describe a little bit of what, like, now that we don't know what's going on, like, it's not really a clean slate, it's a bit of a dirty slate with leftover like mess from before. But what would success look like for you in this messy new world?
I love that you said that, like the mess. Yeah, it starts with cleaning and beautifying your space. So I take my environment I take it very seriously, and I've always been obsessed with plants and things that are growing. So I make sure that in my actual environment, there's a lot of nature incorporated. So you can see even the plants like hanging above my head. I've got a lot of plants everywhere. Scent is very important to me. I've got incense and candles and essential oils that I burn that smell good. I use a lot of fairy lights. I don't know if you can see them up here. Like, can you see those fairy lights above me there? But they're all over my house. Like, so the aesthetic of the actual space, I want to create an environment that feels creative. So I set the scene for what I'm wanting my life to look like. And that's in life and business, setting the scene, carve out a beautiful workspace, beautify it, have candles and plants and things, and then give yourself pleasure, like literally pleasure. Like, what is your favorite, most like exquisite coffee that you love to drink? So I use this hazelnut coffee, and then I bought this special mug. Now it's full of coffee stains, but like my gratitude mug. So it's a special mug that I bought for this transition. I like having cake for breakfast and treats. So I've got a lot of like cakes and sweets and treats. That is like a lovely, enjoyable thing. It really starts with like nurturing and nourishing yourself and giving yourself sweet pleasure. And then you feel full and ready to spill that out over into your work. But you can't draw from an empty well. You can't draw if you're exhausted and tired. And there's a lot of people who want to serve the world and give to others, and then they forget to give to themselves. And it's so counterintuitive. Sorry, this thing just started. So
reset it.
The people who want to give and care for others forget to give and care for themselves. It has to start with you. So you replenish yourself, you give to yourself first, and then you can give back. Because when you're full, like in a vase, you can spill out and over. So it's got to start with that. And like beauty is important, but true beauty, which is nature and like your aesthetic and including the senses in your environment.
It's beautiful. So maybe give us like a sneak peek. What is behind the scenes, a day in the life of Lauren? What does that look like?
I wake up at different times. I don't have a morning routine. My morning routine, I do put my phone on airplane mode. So I wake up, check my phone, I'll scroll through all my social media, and then usually I'm inspired to like write a post, and it's very organic. It's whatever I'm feeling like at that moment. So today on my business account, I posted some feedback about my quiz that I've got, this Content Genius quiz. So I'm using behind the scenes and texts that people have sent me and confirmations and sharing like how the process works. So that's very magical, that process. And then in my own personal life, on my own page, I'm talking about my fairy tale that I'm writing, which is my creative project. So I snapped some behind the scenes pictures after writing yesterday. I spoke about fear because my worst fear happened. I lost my entire book, and now I'm going to start again today. Like, it's like, so shared that, and then got ready to speak to you. Usually if I'm not speaking to you like this, I'd be talking to you anyway. And then made my favorite coffee, put a piece of cake, and I'm in really comfy, in my favorite jersey and comfy pants and slippers. And that's how like my morning will start.
That's amazing. Yeah, because your days are beautiful. Like you show your actual, it's like your work process is built into your life. So you go with your flow, you tap into your energy, you work in your different rhythms. There's no set structure. Like, that's from my experience of seeing you work. So, yeah.
And my whole home is like, it's very spacious. It's very open for creativity. It's literally like, I've got a desk set up outside. I've got different areas to work, to sit with my laptop. I'm a person who likes to move to different environments if I'm doing different things. So I've got little corners of my home, which I can work from. And if I'm ever feeling like I need to get something done, but I'm feeling like I'm not in the mood to work traditionally, I'll literally work horizontally, and I'll lie on my couch with all my gorgeous pillows around me, and then I'll do a bit of work like that. But I make it all very playful, or I'll take myself to a coffee shop. But I say like, we work for 80% of our life. Like, there is no work-life balance. It's part of it. So you've got to incorporate it into a way that just feels like a delightful thing to do and not like your work. Yeah, it's like, it feels like expression. My work feels like expression all the time.
Amazing. And you mentioned like the 2 projects that you're working on at the moment. So I want to start with your quiz. Tell me about the process of, what was the process like to create that quiz, and what's happening with that now?
I work with this brilliant coach called the Biz Clarity Coach, Leigh Wallett. And she's so good, and she always tells me what to do. And she's one of the only people I listen to. And she said, you need to make a quiz. And I said, I've made so many quizzes, I don't want to make another one. And she said, you should make a quiz on content types. And I said, I've got 12 different steps of creating content. That's just one of them. And she said, stop overwhelming people with 12. No one cares about 12, do one. So you told me what to do. So I was like, fine, I'll do it. I was like, this is going to take ages. And you were like, do it anyway. So I spent 2 days doing a quiz. Yeah, Leigh, so nice and sweet. Meanwhile, like whipping me with a whip. But when you told me to do that, I know quizzes work. I've done them before, but I haven't done one in a few years because I hadn't found the right exact one, like something really good. And content types is great. Um, you're either a writer or you're an artist, like a visual person or a painter, or you're really clairaudient, like you literally hear things or are good with music and sounds, or you are just great to show up live and just have your energy expressed live, like you're a natural presenter performer. Or you're all of them. You can do all content, like you're just a content creator. Like that's how I think of myself. I'm cross genre. I can do all different styles. So I put together the quiz based on the 4 content types, which I call VITA. So VITA would be the delivery of that type. So either you're delivering video, images, text, or audio, and all of those would be prolific. So with the VITA style, which one are you a natural at? And then what are some quick wins that you can implement of what type of content you could make with that? Things you're not really thinking of, and how could you translate one of those types into the others? Because all of them can be repurposed into them. So audio can be transcribed into text and captions, and images can be used for your text or for your thumbnails, for your art. Like they can all go together. So I created this quiz. It took me 2 days. I set up all the questions. I chose the images to go with it. And then I linked each answer based on the content type. I also set up the tech side of it so that once you get it, I capture your email address. So I'm able to then send you some follow-up information. So I've created now a packet with all the different styles and some quick tips of how to combine them to send to people today to go, hey, you took this quiz, you know your answer, here's some more. So I always like to make sure that there's more that I'm delivering. So if I promise one thing, I'm going to make sure that I give more than that. So yeah, put together the quiz. I use Try Interact as my software for that. I use MailChimp to store my emails. I tag each email so that I know which person fits into which content type. It also gives me a great ability to track, are my audience more video orientated, image, text, or audio? Because I train across discipline, it's nice for me to know which challenge to do next. Do I need to do another live challenge, or should I focus on images? Are people struggling with that? And do people want to play to their strengths, or do they want to enhance their weaknesses? So it gives me a lot of information to play with and assists my content strategy moving forward to go, okay, I'm going to really talk about this quiz for a while because it's a quick win for people. It's an easy thing to do and get an answer. And what the quiz does is it brings people into like my funnel or my nurture sequence for my Content Creators Council. So Content Creators is my monthly mastermind group that I have where I train people in the 12 steps of content creation and give them a special masterclass each month where we deep dive into a specific theme. So doing a story summit on bite-sized storytelling, or doing repurposing content, or doing effective engagement on Instagram, or something to build your business through content and community. And the quiz draws them into that. And I've got that happening on the 28th of each month. So it all aligns, like everything needs to have multi-purposes to a central point.
Yeah. And I think the thing with you is you've got such an abundance of resources because you've been doing this for so long. So like you said, you have these so many different formats, but the 12-step process, you've got all this information to share. And so it's easy for you. You can just give and give and give. And then I think what you highlighted there was like, so one, you've got that like pre-work already done. 2, it does take a conversation, and you are all about the bounce back also. Like you obviously support me so much when I'm coming up with ideas, and I can do the same for you. But having that other perspective where you're like, okay, out of all this content, what's the smallest way in for people to get to know what I'm about? And that's where I'm also really focusing as part of this is like the concept of that minimum viable product. What's the teeniest, tiniest thing? And it's not because you don't want to be generous and give everything you've got, but it's actually making it easier for people to be like, oh, I get it. Like this is a little micro dose of what's available. And I can ingest that and I can get used to this way of working. And then I can step up and be part of this other community. And your content creators community is absolutely incredible. Like all the information you share, the people that you get to meet in there. And like you've shown me that content is, we need content for everything. There's no getting away from that. So
there's no getting away from that.
This is the perfect place to be, to continually like nourish yourself and refill that creative energy and then put your work out there. So yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
That's a great story. And I think another thing would be really nice to talk about, another process that you have, is that you actually teach your creative process in your creative business school. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about like your holistic process of how you work and then how you teach that in your school.
So to break it down really simply, within the creative business school, there's three main sections or three main stages people need to go through to fully optimize their business and have it working for them, like the most effectively. And the beginning is to establish themselves. So where I really focus on the beginning is, what is your zone of genius? What is your creative genius that's going to draw people towards you? Instead of fixating on what do other people want, what's my niche, how do I define myself? When you're beginning, it's about expansion, experimentation, and expression. And instead of worrying about what other people need and trying to pretzel please yourself into like some contortion to go, I can be what you need. It's like, you are your own first client. What did you need 3 years ago? What steps did you need? You've already done them, so you know what you need. You're a human. And I think of this as like, think of it as the Shakespeare strategy. So the reason Shakespeare's stories still work now is because we all have the same emotions. We all know about love and loss and devastation and jealousy and envy and pain and fear. It's the same. But we forget and go, what does a person need? Oh, a busy mom needs more time. I'll give her back time. It's like, no, what do you need? Like, get specific, get nuanced. What do you need? Talk to that, and that'll resonate to other people's hearts way more magnetically than trying to understand what others want, forgetting that you're a person. You're your own best person to get it from. And this is something I mentioned to you the other day. So I love AA, and the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I highly recommend everyone reading, whether you think you're an alcoholic or not. You should definitely read the book. This is like the best content strategy, because in the book, they give you people's individual stories. Now, there's stories that are decades old and from all walks of life, and you can read them and you can find a connection with each story, because the person will say something so specific about a feeling that they've had, that you've had, that you feel like there's a transcendent connection, because it is in the detail. It's so specific. And there's not one story in Alcoholics Anonymous that talks about like getting my time back, or like something generic that you think that every coach is telling you, like, oh, you can get this. No, they speak about something inside. Like here's an example, like how I'll describe myself. I used to feel inside like I was the static on the TV. That's how it felt, like this low grade anxiety all the time that I just couldn't quell. I don't have that anymore. I have spaciousness inside me. Now, someone else who goes, I know that feeling of that static energy, they'll be able to relate, like far more than me saying, do you have anxiety? No. Do you have static TV, like gray, fuzzy, like it's better. So I'm totally sidetracking, but basically you got to establish yourself first. So who are you? What is your zone of genius? And how do you transmit that out to the world? How do you get comfortable sharing your energy, sharing your truth? The next stage is magnetize. Now you start drawing people in. And this is the best, because now you're actually creating content. You're putting it out there. You're not holding back. You are experimenting with what you think makes you unique and seeing what resonates. And you're extending to your edges. So if you think of yourself like a star, you want to push to that edge and you want to see what makes me polarizing. What can I say? What feels uncomfortable? Like, oh, that's too much. No. And you stretch and you expand. You expand into your totality. You really go for it. And this is what's going to start getting you what you described to me as your 100 or true fans, or 1,000
true fans.
Yeah, like those people who are going to be with you no matter what. So I've been in creative business for 16 years, from a performing arts school to an acting agency to a shop to products to, all of it. And there's still those loyalists who've been with me from the beginning, no matter what I'm incarnating into, because that's my energy they're attracted to. So ultimately, when you have a service-based business, there's something about your heart space that people are going to hook into. So you want to be getting very comfortable translating your heart. So that's intangible, but you can make that very practical with the 12 steps to content creation. Okay. All 12, all of them. Okay. But you can take them bit by bit. Finally, once you've done that, you're established, you're magnetizing people, it's happening. You want to optimize your business, that you're not bound to your computer 24/7, but that it's working for you instead of you for it. And that's when you want to virtualize, automate, have systems in place and structures so you can scale and just focus on what you love the most and let the other stuff happen automatically. So I have a very free and flexible life. I just do what I love. And a lot of what that means is time out for coffee, for playing on TikTok, for going for walks on the beach, for watching movies, for, you know, doing random stuff that I like, and for creating. And this is the final thing I'll say about that. There's a lot of consultants, business owners, and coaches who I'll speak to who say very irritating things. And this is what they say. They'll reach out to you on Instagram and be like, hey, love, like, let me know if I can support you. And I usually write back and go, yes, you can. You could subscribe to my podcast. And I never hear from them again because they don't mean it. So don't say it. Well, I hope you get value from my page. And it's like they don't say that. And then when I do engage these generic things in conversation and they say like, what is your passion project? They ask me something and I say, what's your creative project? And they'll respond with, being the best teacher and serving my clients. And it's like, no, your life goal can't be your clients, can't be other people. That's something you do. What's your thing? Like, not everything's to sell. And some people think that all they've got to show up online is that everything they do is to sell. What life is that? Like, what person are you that all you live for, like your random clients you haven't met yet? Like, no thanks. Like, I'm living for my own pleasure. Of course I'm going to serve my clients, but I'm never going to be able to serve them if that's all I'm fixated on. It's like a mother who's only obsessed with her child and has no interest outside of that child. Awful. Like, you're not even a full person. So what's your own passion? Make sure you're speaking about that and sharing that, and let it be diverse. Like, you do not have to niche down and your only passion is other people who you help her to sell to. That's just greedy and fucking weird. Like, no, what do you love? Like, you better be sharing that. Otherwise, you don't seem like a real human, and it seems dishonest, disingenuous, and it is. So you better have stuff you're into.
Love it. And I think this is where I also struggle with this whole idea of being like an expert and an authority. It's like, this whole thing of like, that's the only thing you can talk about. And I'm coming, you know, you often speak about that being like high and mighty and coming down and helping. And it's even like a rescuer kind of savior complex. It's like, no, we're just people. And this is also what I want to be showing behind the scenes, because it's like, what's the human element to this where we can actually just be like, I'm afraid, I do it anyway. You know, I can show up wherever I am, like show the actual process. And the process needs to be valuable in and of itself. It can't just be that this one individual has all the answers, like
100%. And one thing I'm also thinking of is there's a lot of these gurus and experts who jump on late at night or first thing in the morning because they just received a download that they must share with their audience, with their flock. And they must, guys, I'm jumping on to share this with you. I just got this for you. And it's like, that's what you're doing at night, is like, that's your whole life. Like, all you're thinking about is how you're going to sell. Like, what about jumping on to be like, show us something you're doing from your own life, or you're enjoying something, or your own activity? Like, there's got to be more to you than just this fixation. It's very off-putting. And like, if that is your life, who wants that? If that's what success looks like, I mean, I like, no thanks. Like, of course you're a human. Your life is more than that. So you've got to include those other aspects. Otherwise, it's so patriarchal. It's so linear. It's so one thing. It's so boring. And there's nothing worse than boring.
Nothing worse than boring. So tell us, last thing I want to know about is your exciting new project, with you creating all the space in your life so you get to tap into your inner author, which I'm like, there are a few things that I'm like obsessed. When you do, I'm like, get so excited. If you sing, and I'm so excited you're singing on TikTok, it's like fills my heart with joy. I'll tell like a side story. When Lauren was in school, she was the lead in like all the plays in our town, but like not just school plays, our national theatre. And I used to go after school and like be in the back rooms. Actually, maybe that's why I'm obsessed with being behind the scenes, because I was generally like behind the scenes watching you perform, especially when you were in a VITA. That's when I remember it the most. And you would sing it every night, and I'd be like, I can't believe this. Like, I can't believe her voice is this good. It blew my mind. And I even feel like that now when you sing on TikTok, it's like an angel, literally. I'm like, this angelic voice, how is this happening? Anyway,
my voice is not that good, but I do it because I know you like it. And I'm like, Leigh thinks I'm a good singer. And it's like, my voice still, I hear my voice, it's like, it still sounds like I'm 13. Like, my voice never got older. It's still like a child's voice, but like, it doesn't have to be that good. It's really fun to sing, and it's just nice. And I'm like, my sister thinks I'm good, so whatever. Like, you know, like, I have the opposite voice to now, you know, and when you hear these singers, they're like, and they make all these like weird sounds like I don't even know what they're doing, but it's all like they don't say a word properly. It wouldn't be like potato, but like potato, like, and it's like, well, like mine's the opposite. It's like very just standard singing. But yeah, I love that you love that. It makes me so happy. Yeah.
I want to tell you more about the things I love. Sorry, that was the one thing. You're on TikTok. That's okay. Everyone check Lauren out on TikTok. The other thing is when you teach people how to go live, I'm like, you're such a natural, it's such a gift of yours when you show people how to present. So if you do another Live with Lauren challenge, everyone should sign up.
I'm doing one in November.
Then what's that? 30th of November?
No, in November, I'm doing one.
November, okay. And then the final one is another story from when we were children. Like, this was my favorite game that we used to play with these fantasy lands, and would be like a couch like the one I'm sitting on. It was like quite a big 2 or 3 seater couch. I would be at my cousin's house with my 2 cousins, Brett and Claire. I don't know why we only did this at their house, but that's the only time I remember. Yeah. And we'd go behind the couch, and suddenly we'd be in this fantasy land that Lauren had created. Like, no one else could create a land like this. Do you remember the name of it, actually? I can't remember what it was called.
Wasn't it Munchkin Land?
Munchkin Land. And it was like, you would just describe everything, and it would be this, like, I was so immersed in it. It was like literally like another parallel universe that I stepped into. But we couldn't do it on our own. Like, Lauren had to create Munchkin Land behind the couch for this game to happen. Anyway, you are now creating a fantasy land, so tell us about that.
Yes, so about Munchkin Land, I remember describing to you being like, Leigh, I wasn't even there during our childhood. Like, I was escaped into a fantasy land. And when you said to me, you're like, yeah, you took us with you. And I was like, did I? And you were like, yes, we were allowed to come. I was like, oh, I thought it was just me in there. Like I was so in that land. So yes, that's what I've created now. And that's one of the things that I've loved more than anything is writing. So I love performing, obviously. And it is so easy for me that I don't think of it as like a skill. So like a lot of people are teaching how to go live, and I'm like, who doesn't know how to do that? But I definitely challenge myself to do things that are harder for me instead of the things that are easy. And I'm getting more comfortable with it's allowed to be easy. Like, I can totally teach people how to go live and perform. I've been doing it my whole life. So yes, there's more of that. But with this, it's like, I've always written, and writing words, I hear things in words, I'm clairaudient, and it really is easy for me to see things like in such description. So the story that I'm writing now is the origin story of the fairy godmother. So how did Cinderella's fairy godmother grow up? What's her story? How did she become so magical? And what really happened that night that she went to Cinderella? And what don't we know? Because what we don't know is that it was one of the biggest fuck ups that the world has ever seen, and we're still living with the consequences. So there were devastating effects of the fairy godmother's visit to Cinderella. And this story is the great undoing of what went wrong. And it's undoing a lie that has been perpetuated ever since that story came out. That lie that has infiltrated to little girls and little boys, the idea of being a princess and rescue and savior and happy endings being dependent on a prince charming, the idea of charming, the idea of balls, fantasy dresses, all of that. Like, the real truth is so much more magnificent and intoxicating and delightful, and holds so much more power for girls and boys. Like, it is for boys too, even though it's primarily focused on women. And it's a story that feels so true to me. I know it so clearly that describing it doesn't even feel like I'm making it up. It just feels like I'm remembering it. Like, it just feels like 100% the truth. And it's really consumed my reality so much so that I moved to the beach, to Hermosa, to be by the beachside to complete the story, because the story takes place in an enchanted forest by the ocean. And I now live literally on the road of the green belt, which is this extended forest strip where the train used to run. So for hours and hours, I can walk along this green belt of like forest trees and this beautiful path just woven for miles right next to my house. And I'm 5 minutes away from the beach, which is insane. So I can walk on the beach every single day. And lining the back of my property is like these huge Douglas green fir trees, you know, those like Christmas trees. Like, I'm literally in the enchanted forest, and it's so magical. And I've put the story on Patreon, which is a platform for people to become patrons of the art. So to be included in this project, that people can come and be part of my North Star kingdom. So this world isn't Munchkin Land. It's the kingdom of the North Star, where all the creatures are part animal, part creature. They all have magical gifts and abilities. And I'm including new normal humans to come to the North Star Kingdom to learn about this enchanted world, to hear the story firsthand, and to learn how to practice magic, because part of the story is about the initiation into magic that each creature goes through when they're 13, and they all get trained. And so throughout writing the story, I'll be training people in magic philosophy and in magical application. Now, this is not Harry Potter style magic at all. It's actual magic you can do. So you can literally do all the things that I'm teaching. Like I mean, it might sound strange, like transcendence and translations and submergence and travel, but they're all actually durable. And I include a lot of the magic in my business school too. So you described it best when you said my business school is like Hogwarts meets Fame Academy. So I have the creative business school. You can come learn business, how to be successful. But this school is pure magic. This is about traveling to your once upon a time and how you go to these destinations.
It's so beautiful. And you also, I love the way you are creating this process of writing, that you're inviting people into it, that you are like sharing the journey. And it's also like I guess the minimum viable product for this is going to be your story reading. So, are you sharing, is it the first chapter, or what are you doing in the first event?
Yeah. So if they're on the Patreon group, they'll get behind the scenes, like latest writings. They'll get actual readings with me where I'll actually read it, like the first time anyone's ever heard it, read the chapters. And then I'll have Q&A where questions can be asked. And depending on your tiered level, there's also sections where I do actual teaching of the philosophy. So actually teaching the spells and teaching the work. So the first one's on the 31st of October, but they'll be happening monthly. And there'll just be all the insight into creating something truly magical. So I'd say it's for anyone who's looking for some entertainment or to bring their teenagers or kids for a family. Like, you can just buy one pass and bring your whole family around the computer to listen to the story. But also if you're looking to like learn from witnessing the process. So maybe you don't want to study in business, but you need more creativity in your own life. You want to create something magical. Well, here's how it's done. Like, it's completely transparent. I'm sharing the entire process, how I do it, the rhythm of working, all the behind the scenes stuff. So it's really like an insider look at how does the creative process happen? Because I find that most people are fascinated in where does inspiration come from? Like, how do you make this up? Like, how do you get it? So I'm going to be sharing exactly how I get it so that you can do the same.
Amazing. And you can be part of that world, which is like the best experience.
It's a great world. Like, I couldn't have made up a better one. Like, escaping into this world is like, it's so thrilling for me. And then when I see images and things like it, I'm like, oh, that's like the ocean. Oh, that's like the sunset. Like, I know what it looks like so viscerally. I can feel it. And it's like, it's the best place to be. You want to be in the North Star Kingdom.
Definitely. And what is the Patreon prices? How much does it cost to join?
It starts at $7. And I may have a lower price one for South Africans. I think I might do like a really easy access one for them to watch recordings or something, because I know like with dollars the prices are quite high, but then it goes up. I think for $22 it's like you can actually have interaction with me and ask questions and get like direct feedback. And then I have one section in there which is quite high up where I actually teach you how to write your own fairy tale. So it literally goes all the way. I would like this to become something that's like quite fundamental in my life, where I have this group of pure creatives. So I've got the business and the creatives, but then this is just pure creativity for the writers there, for the world makers, the people who actually don't just want to help others, but they want to recreate the world into something else. So for the world makers, it's a step further than being an impact maker, it's a world maker.
I love it. It's so beautiful. And those are amazing prices to get your to really be included in this process, to hear the story firsthand. Like, $7 for an entertaining night once a month is nothing. And then $22 to get your time. Like, that's pretty incredible. So that's a great deal for anyone who wants some of your
Yeah. My business prices are not that. So like, this is definitely a way. Yeah. It's like it's a very easy, it's a very low price access point to get up close and personal.
Amazing. That's so great. At some point I'll have something like show notes or whatever, then I can include all those kinds of links, but for now I'll put them in the Facebook group, and you can check everything that you share will be on your Instagram page, right? The Creativity Coach or Lauren Wallett.
Coach is everything for business, and then Lauren Wallett is everything for fantasy. I'm just trying to keep those separate because like if I'm teaching, I want to make sure that I'm giving all the information to like run your business. But in my own personal life, it's like, obviously I'm not just a business owner, I'm a fully fledged human. So I go way more into fantasy and just expanding my life at Lauren Wallett. And then at the Creativity Coach, it's everything you need to know to start and scale your business.
Amazing. Thanks, sis. This has been fun. So anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
No, that's so great. I can't wait to see your podcast.
Yeah, any tips for me in my podcast and what to do going forward?
Yeah, just make sure you get all the tech sorted out. So I'd use Libsyn for that, and then get great cover art. Like make it really a nice, striking cover art, something that you're really excited about, that you're really into. And yeah, just decide it's the structure, like the creativity I know you'll have, but it's the structure. So are you going to have like season 1? How many episodes? Are they all with guests? Like do a lot of your planning, do a lot of the steps, because once you have that framework in place, the creativity is really fun. Then you just put things into its place. But just make sure you've got like the specs covered. But you'll have the list from me of like, your frequency, your timing, your structuring, all that stuff.
Amazing. I love it. Yeah, you're so great. And your podcast is also incredible. And that's what made this so easy for me. And I think I always forget that like you've done all this groundwork. So I'm like, oh yeah, I know how to do a podcast because Lauren knows. Like I really had the practice. So it's such a gift for me. And I know the process you went through to create your cover art was pretty spectacular. So I will take inspiration from that. And yes. What's the name of your podcast right now? Is it still the Creation
with Leigh Wallett?
Creation with Leigh Wallett.
Yeah.
So check that out because, if you want to know more of your like backstory and your beliefs and all those kinds of things, you can find them in that podcast.
Totally.
Amazing. Thanks, sis. Okay, I will chat to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Oh, wait. One more thing behind the scenes. Sis.
Yeah.
I've got to take a boomerang. This is going to be the final like meta. I've like documented the entire day of how I've got set up for this. So
how can I do my view and I'll also do one gallery? Okay, you do it and I'll do it.
Okay, I'm going to try to look up at the screen. I'm going to wait. Okay. I always end up looking down. Okay, that's perfect. Do you want to take one?
Let me take a picture of a smiling one.
Just a picture or a boomerang?
Just a picture. Well,
that's going to be my cover art. Just kidding.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, great. I got it. Thanks, sis. This is great. I'm going to go watch it.
Amazing. Bye, sis.